Completely fine.
We'll start the live streaming in a couple of minutes, Anand.
Sure. Completely fine.
Hi, welcome everyone. Good afternoon and good evening to everyone wherever you're joining us from. And welcome to our webinar series called Experts Speak in association with IIFIS, the International Institute for Information Security. And let me give you a brief about the speaker for today, Mr. Anand Kumar Jha. He's a Vice President and a Lead Systems Architect at Wells Fargo. Anand is a cybersecurity specialist strategist and is currently working as an IAM enterprise architect at Wells Fargo. He's into accelerating, ideating, and incubating solutions in the identity and access management domain. And today he will be covering the topic on the future of IAM, trends and innovation in identity security. And one request to all the participants, please post your questions in the chat and Q&A session, and we will present it to the speaker at the end of the presentation. Over to you, Anand.
Thanks, Ram, for the invite, and I'm really very much glad to see this particular invitation. So, as I'm very much elated to talk on this particular topic because this is pretty close to my heart, and that's why thanks to the entire IIFS team to just organize such type of event, which is not only thought-provoking but also an outreach program for the people who are trying to learn and make their career over there in identity and access management space. So thanks for that. On this thank note, to all everyone who is in this particular webinar today. So we have been talking a lot about cybersecurity and identity and access management in day-to-day life, but why this topic, the future of IAM and trends and innovations in identity and access management? Because somehow I personally feel that people are somewhere stuck in the older terminologies as well as the terms which is being dragged from past 10 to 20 years. So it's a time to just think beyond what we are doing and what are the things where we need to focus more. And on that particular note, this session we have organized the future of IAM, the trends and innovation in identity and access management space. Anyhow, I mean, Ram already talked a bit about me, but I would like to just talk a bit about myself as well. So I'm a cybersecurity evangelist, specialized in identity and access management, data governance and administration, information security and AppSec, as well as cloud security and information security. I got an opportunity to work on various fronts in my entire career, where I was working as a developer, a solution implementer, as an operations specialist, as a product manager. Got an opportunity to create a couple of Gartner top 5 products over there in identity and identity governance and administration. Also headed a product engineering team and currently working as an enterprise architect at Wells Fargo. Apart from doing my work activities, I'm very passionate about enabling the community on identity and access management areas, as well as the other areas of expertise like in AppSec, information security, data security, and governance. And talking about the achievements that I feel that I was able to gain in my entire experience. I got an opportunity to work in the NIST cybersecurity framework version 2 draft when it was getting drafted. Also, I got an opportunity to work on five plus global blogs and 20 plus webinars on cybersecurity that I have delivered yet. Got an opportunity to contribute to CCSK, that is Certified Cloud Security Knowledge version 5 examination, and I was a reviewer of many white papers related to zero trust, and got an opportunity to work with Dr. John Kinterwag also, who is a well-known face in zero trust domain. And I got an opportunity recently to get started with a very niche area, which is cyber law and cyber forensics. And there we have recently started a forum called Cyber Law Forum. So that is kicking up right now. And along with this entire IAM pieces, we are also trying to find out some of the niche areas where we can actually put some scopes and innovations which can help and benefit the community going forward. With that, let's get started on today's topic, that is the futures and trends in identity and access management. But before starting that, let me uh, get started with something which is core and basic to this entire understanding, right? So whenever we talk about identity and access management, the first thing that kicks in, right, what is identity, right? And most of the misunderstood terms currently in this particular domain is, whenever we are talking about identity, everyone feels that we are talking about a user, right? It is not that. So I would say that imagine waking up one morning in a world without identities, where no one has name, number, profile, or credentials to prove who they are. At first, the idea might sound liberating. No paperwork, no passwords to remember, no complex onboarding. But as you step out of the door, everything begins to unravel. So without identities, basic interactions becomes impossible. You cannot access your bank account. There's no way for the system to know who you are. If you try to book an appointment, buy groceries online, or sign a contract, every transaction stalls because you have no trusted way to prove yourself. Voting, travel, healthcare, all grind to a halt. Privacy cannot exist without identity, and neither can accountability or meaningful trust between the people. So, identity does not enable access, it protects us from fraud, safeguards our privacy, and anchors everything from the digital payments to the employment. Business rely on identity to prevent financial losses, comply with laws, and build reputation. Identity is the silent infrastructure behind social media, communication, government services, and our very sense of safety. So every time when you log in to sign up or simply show your ID, you are reinforcing a layer of trust that keeps society moving. So in short, identity is a mandatory need woven into our daily lives. Without it, our digital and real world connection collapse. So just an address allows a letter to reach our destination. Identity allows opportunity, protections, and access to flow, making our world ordered, secured, and connected. This is how I can say you that identity is not only an individual, it could be anything. It could be your bank account, it could be an address, it could be any entity within your house, it could be an infrastructural object, it could be a non-human piece. So anything or everything that is around you is an identity. So as we discussed about identity, the first thing and the less talked about thing in identity space is about its evolution and history. So most of the people understand that when there was a digital boom, the identity evolved, but that's not the right thing. It actually started in 1960. So there was a gentleman called Fernando Corbato. He introduced the password to secure files, a very simple idea, yet so revolutionary that it laid down the foundation of how we think about identity online. Fast forward to 1970s and 80s, companies scrambled to build multi-user systems and centralized authentication. And this is how the basic identity authentication was born, giving rise to the Kerberos, Unix security, and the groundwork for role-based accesses, all essential to the digital society we have today. By 1990s, password fatigue was already a reality, and organizations adopt Active Directory, SSO solutions, and RBAC to keep with this rapidly developing digital world. Fast forward to 2000s. So globalization and internet push us towards federated identities. And there what was the dawn of the cloud IAM. Suddenly, access isn't just about being inside a building or about being anywhere or anytime. So if you think about 2010, with mobile, cloud, and digital economy exploding, IAM adapted OAuth, OIDC, that is nothing else but Open IDC, and Open Identity Connect, adaptive access, strong multi-factor authentications, and zero trusts redefined our security posture, ensuring it's not just about keeping the bad guys out, but giving the right access to the right people at the right time with a little friction as possible. And now, in 2020s, IAM is converging with AI, Internet of Things, several self-sovereign identities, and adaptive security, where we in the world, where identity is more than a gatekeeper, it's an enabler, a facilitator of trust, innovation, and seamless digital experiences. So every step in this evolution is not just a technical, but it's about protecting people, data, and our way of life. Without IAM, our digital society cannot think for a safe ecosystem. It will be highly chaotic and unsafe. But with its evolution, we empower digital trust, drive transformation, and unlock the full potential of modern world securely and confidently. Having said that, you might be feeling quite different, that why we are talking about this entire field called IAM. So is there any opportunity, right? Or why, what is that particular thing which is driving this entire domain within cybersecurity? So when we talk about the future of digital trust, identity, and access management on IAM, something identity is at the heart of it. But why IAM is such a big deal? Why is we are investing such a big amount in such a critical space right now? And why should I do it? Basically, that is the big question. Being a cybersecurity enthusiast, why should I focus on IAM? So for you, look at the drivers, which is pushing IAM forward. So protection from attackers and data breaches has never been more important. With threats growing in volume and sophistication every day. On top of that, regulatory compliances are tightening. Organizations must prove that just not the claim, and that their digital identities are secure, but it doesn't stop there. The explosion of digital transformation and mobility means people want access on any device, anywhere, at any time, without sacrificing experience and security. So user convenience isn't just a nice to have, it's what differentiates leaders from laggards. And let's not forget the cost and efficiency. So a streamlined IAM means less operational overhead, fewer breaches, and faster business. Now let's talk about the numbers. And these are certain numbers which I have already received from some of the the market leaders, as well as the people who are highly invested in IAM analytics. So if you see the IAM market, so that's already around $15 billion USD in 2022. But it's set to practically triple to $45 million by 2029. A staggering 15% annual growth rate. It isn't just global, every region like North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Africa is seeing an explosive growth in this particular domain. And specifically, if you see the right hand side of it, where you can see by 2029, you can see a bigger, uh, gain that you can see specifically in the APAC region. That's the green one, which is actually growing very high. And similar, leap that you can see over there in the North America side, that it is actually taking a bigger leap. This shows that IAM is not a regional necessity, but it's a global mandate. So why we should work in IAM? Because this is a field, is a gateway to digital trust. It's where security, compliance, convenience, and business success intersect. The challenges are immense, but so are the opportunities. So by building smarter, more secure IAM, we protect people, enable innovation, and shape the very infrastructure our digital world relies. So if you want to make a real impact at the intersection of technology, security, and business, this is the space to be. And that's why IAM is very much important. Now let's talk about current perspectives of IAM. So when we ask what is IAM really all about, we are talking about a digital ecosystem, the core of every modern organization's security and efficiency. So at its foundation, IAM is much more than just logins and permissions. starting with authentication. This is how we prove that who we are, we say, and whether that's with the password or a one-time code or biometrics or even contextual cues. But access isn't just about getting it, it's about authorization, defining exactly what each user or system can do through rules, roles, attributes that is tightly control sensitive actions with. Then it comes for the governance and administration, the backbone keeping everything in order. Here we manage identities from onboarding to offboarding, assigning roles, ensuring requests and accesses are properly reviewed, and all changes are meticulously tracked and certified. Now let's talk about access management and simplification. It's all about giving users seamless, secure ways to interact. Think about single sign-on, federated access, and working across effortlessly for employees, partners, vendors, contractors, and customers alike. Let's talk about privileged access management. So it tackles our highest risks, those with the keys to the kingdom. And we discovered privileged identities vault, rotate credentials, monitor every critical session, ensure privileged access not only in just in time, but also getting revoked very swiftly. Talking about data access governance. So it keeps a watch on it's a watchful eyes to our data, that who is having access to which particular type of data, whether the data are very critical, restricted, public, open, and mapping identities to the information, enabling granular controls, enforcing access matrices, and taking actions at the first sign of risk. And rounding it out is identity intelligence and auditing, the analytics engine. We use advanced analytics as well as the threat detection to find anomalies, verifying the identities, audit at every step, and surfaces threats before they come to breaches. So each of these 7 pillars reinforce to all others together, and this is how they make IAM essential layer for the digital trust, keeping our organization secure, compliant, agile in today's digital first world. While we are talking about this entire identity management and identity and access management, the first important thing is how the entire life cycle works. And from that particular perspective, let's talk about what is the IAM life cycle, and let's explore what it really means to manage identity across the entire life cycle. Because IAM isn't a single event, but an ongoing and interconnected cycle. It all starts with onboarding and then provisioning, the creation of digital identity, the assignment of entitlements and the system access, setting up the foundation for the secure and productive engagement. As soon as identities are onboarded, authentication steps in, establishing how these users will prove themselves, defining and enforcing security policies that keep them safe. Next comes authorization, and where the authenticated identity is allowed to do something, enforcing the access model, ensuring the privileged are matching the responsibilities. But identities aren't static, they evolve. So we empower user through self-service, whether it is changing a password or updating attributes. Self-services keep identities current while reducing IT workload. As users' roles and needs change, the access request process enables the right people to get right access at the right time, like requesting, granting, or revoking privileges as circumstances demand. Overseeing all of this, governance provides a control layer, reviewing access, driving certifications, and triggering risk-based mitigations to assure compliance and minimize threats. So when an identity reaches the end of its life and risk emerges, deprovisioning acts decisively. Access is revoked, accounts are disabled, and sensitive data is archived or purged, ensuring that dormant identities don't become security liabilities. So trying it all together, identity analytics, auditing, and intelligence runs the background, tracking, analyzing, and surfacing insights at each and every stage to improve decisions, detect anomalies, and ensure the system continuously adapts to the new risks. Each of this domain is essential on its own, but when connected in a seamless life cycle, they create a resilient fabric of trust, security, and efficiency. So protecting organizations and empowering users from day one to very last day of the digital journey. So this is how the entire identity and access management lifecycle kicks in, and this is how it helps the organization at a very large manner. Now let's talk about what is the current stage and problems in practical life. And this is something which is going to give you a cue that where we stand right now, and in future where we need to focus on a bigger basis. So today, when we look at the state of identity and access management, we find ourselves at a crossroad, like living in a mixed era where between the second to third generation of IAM. Now you can very much relate that when I was talking about the multiple generations of IAM, you might have seen that by 2020, I was talking about the fourth and fifth generation. But the grand reality is whether we are at that particular era, or in practical, are we using that thing in a very practical manner? So let's decode that particular perspectives. So while we are making incredible process, organizations are still grappling with a lot of persistent as well as complex challenges. So consider this reality. Employees and systems are burdened with too many accounts, roles, and entitlements, leading to confusion and increasing the risk of privilege misuse. Painful long passwords and authentication routines wear everyone down. Security shouldn't feel like punishment, complex access reviews, or cumbersome joiner, lever, mover processes drain valuable time, while time consuming apps for onboarding slows down every new initiative. On top of that, average user experience threatens adoption, and manual access requests eat up working hours, breeding frustrations as well. So, access reviews and certifications are complex, often more of a box ticking exercise than an effective control. Partial real-time integrations means organizations never had a full up-to-date picture of the accesses across the environment. And worse yet, evolving adaptive access features can leave gap. No security threat, threat intelligence makes it hard to spot or respond to the attacks. And organizations wonder, are our critical identities and data ever covered? There are not just technical issues, they are business risks and compliance liabilities and barriers to trust, agility, and innovations. The takeaway is pretty clear. Like IAM is more vital than ever, the journey is far from complete. The next stage is about turning these weak points into strength and building systems that is seamless, secure, smart enough to keep with the today's threats and tomorrow demands. Now, the biggest question over here is that whether we are at the right point to solve this entire problems, or are our this current problems has any solution which we can actually solve, as well as take it through to a next level where we'll not have to worry about any of these problems but think of the real solutions. So now with that, let's talk about the solutions and future of IAM. So with the integration of AI into IAM, you can see that there are a lot of capabilities that we have brought in. And with that particular capabilities, I'll be talking about each one capability in detail. So starting right from the left, we are talking about AI Access Assist. What is this? So you might have been thinking very, in a very interested manner that whenever a person is joining an organization, the first big question that person deals with, what access I need in order to fulfill my roles and responsibilities, whether that access is documented somewhere. Is there a particular central point where should go and ask for, the roles and responsibilities or privileges that match my roles and responsibilities, and can I get that in a single shot? Whatever the access request that I'm requesting through this particular portal, whether they are compliant, they are not covered with loaded risk. So for all these things, what organizations do daily, that whenever you are going to an organization as a new joiner, or you are moving to some different department, we can think of a particular technology where AI can consume the details about your privileges, as well as the description about the roles and entitlements, and you can utilize that particular technology to ask whether the accesses which I am requesting to fulfill my roles and responsibilities, are they falling under segregation of duties? Is there any risk that is associated to that? Is there any other people who is actually utilizing it? Are there any mitigated controls that is required to fulfill this particular request before I access that, because this is relying into something emergency as well as elevated roles? So think of AI Access Assist as one short point for any individual while joining an organization. They can ask the question, and definitely the model behind that particular technology can help them to understand that whether you are doing the right thing within the organization. This is how you can see a shift in the culture of the organization as well. where people will be more proactive to learn about the risk before raising an access. Talking about the payback and model-based recommendations. So as I was talking about that, there are a lot of attribute-based access control system that is there in the organization. But is that the real need of the organization? Considering that multiple breaches that is happening in the organization, why cannot we have a particular policy-based access control which should assign access to a user based on the demand of the business, as well as revoke the things in a subsequent faster manner? Why can't we have a model access recommendation? Because in most of the organization, it happens that you join it and you are struggling to get an access for almost like 3 to 4 weeks. Rather than just struggling for 3 to 4 weeks, we can think of a particular solution where you can find who is the immediate next, body within your team or within your department whose access can be modeled for your, day-to-day work. And this is how we can considerably, reduce that 70 to 80% burden, and we can reduce the time cycle. And definitely, if there is some exceptional access that is required for that particular individual contributor as a part of that roles and responsibility, we can definitely try that out. We can go for an explicit rule where they can pick and choose, that explicit or elevated or privileged access, and go ahead with that. Here with this particular technology, utilizing machine learning as well as, artificial intelligence, you can still recommend that what are the possible and potential roles and responsibility that you could have as a part of your day-to-day work. Talking about UEBA driven adaptive access and identity proofing. What is UEBA? User Entity Behavioral Analytics. Now, that is also an big word that is booming in this particular space. So people are thinking that they're bored up with user ID and password, and they want something called a multi-factor authentication as well in order to get them covered from any type of risk where they feel that password can be breached. Very fine. But do you need multi-factor authentication each and every time? That is a question. There is one school of thought where they are saying that yes, we should have MFA everywhere. But there is some school of thought where they prioritize user experience before security. They are feeling that having multi-factor authentication each and every time is a pain to a user experience. So with that piece, the user entity behavior analytics driven adaptive access and identity proofing is one of the scope where we can think of having its close combination with guided random passwordless authentication, and we can make a solution where you are not supposed to think of having or putting passwords each and every time, but whenever the system analyzes that there is a breach context that is received, whether that is a change in host name, change in domain name, whether you are having a location based parameter that is getting triggering in and checking that the user location is not compliant, in that particular context you can easily force a user to double authenticate themselves or double verify themselves whether they are the legit users. This is how you are introducing the zero trust frameworks and zero trust principles in use, and at the meantime you are providing a robust security. Now, what is the meaning of guided random passwordless authentication? This is also a concept of multimodal authentication, where as a part of enrollment, you are asking the end user to come with multiple possible factors which can be utilized to authenticate and verify yourself, and at the meantime you are asking them to come or ask for any random or the guided mode of authentication. So let me give you a right example over there. So think of that your 10 different factors are enrolled for a particular authentication. Think of all 10 fingers. Think of another form of biometrics like retina, your voice, and whenever you're authenticating your system, machine automatically asks you that I want you to put an impression from your finger 1 or from finger 5 together, one by one or simultaneously, right? So in that particular context, even if someone is trying to remember one particular piece, they will not be able to identify randomly that which one is going to be asked, and even bot cannot track it out until and unless they are having all of your factors breezed out, or they are having each and every factor mentioned in their databases, and they are playing this round robin algorithm. So This is how you can actually deal with multimodal authentication. Or sometimes people are also making a solution where, based on the context or based on the risk factor, if there is an elevated risk, they will ask you to go for not only 2 factors of authentication, but also sometimes 3 factors of authentication. Authenticate with password, authenticate with your OTP or PIN, or next authenticate with your biometrics, right? So it is covering everything, like something who you are, what you have, and what you know. So it's a combination of 3 things, and this is how it makes the authentication assurance level pretty high. Now, coming to the threat intel driven micro certifications. So traditionally, if you see and check out the current market, so most of the market is actually going through a schedule based certification. Now, what is the meaning of schedule based certification? That your accesses or the accounts are getting certified after a month, or after half a year, or after a year. Now, this is a very tedious task. Now, think of that an access got breached in a certain time, and it went for 10 days, and if an organization has managed their certification cycle after 3 months, do you see they will be able, do you feel that they will be able to govern this entire breach in this particular cycle, when the attacker came, did the menace, and left out without leaving any trace, whether you will be able to govern this entire cycle? So the thought process to have a particular solution where you can get an event trigger, it could be a SIM solution that you can build around. And with that SIM trigger, it will give you the threat intel at the right time, and it will automatically create an actionable control for you, where you can have a decision making power, you can take an action, and it will get remediated immediately. This is how I was talking. Make deprovisioning decisively and completely event based rather than schedule based. The another thing, with the inception or the evolution of AI, there are high possibilities that industry is looking through, that let's not have the individual connectors built in. Like, if you think of the traditional identity and access management integrations, what they had specific connectors for each and every type of vendor products. But with the evolution of AI, the things has moved to MCP, that is model context protocol. So it's, you can think of model context protocol as simple as a USB 2.0 accessory, which you can connect to any of the digital devices that you can see around. Previously, we had multiple adapters. Now we are doing everything using a single USB 2.0. So MCP is exactly like that, that if you are having an MCP protocol, you can actually connect to almost every system around you. There's no need to think of any explicit or unique protocol for each and every application onboarding. And second last but not the least, let's talk about the advanced analytics and real-time dashboarding. So yeah, so the future of IAM also thinks about that how you can have an event-driven analytics rather than just recon the data and create a report. So if you are having any changes that is happening within your entire ecosystem, there should be a real-time threat intelligence, and that threat intelligence should drive the statistics on your dashboard along with the analytics. They can predict specifically about that particular genre of discussion, or that genre of attributes which is getting filtered to create your analytics. It should give a prediction that how it is going to trend for next 3 weeks, for next 1 month. Based on that, and based on the history that you have already for your organization, it should be competent enough to provide you the advanced analytics along with the real-time dashboarding. The last but not the least, that integrated gamified security training. So this is something that is very, very, very important in day-to-day life, and I feel that most of the vendors need to think through it, because training and enabling a particular individual in identity and access management domain, or specifically on the products, is becoming very challenging these days. Now it's very difficult for an individual, right, to go through the documentation and understand the entire nitty-gritties about a particular feature. But at the meantime, if your product is embedded with a gamified training, where you're saying, or where you are actually asking a person to click this step, do this, and this is how you are going to deliver a particular use case, This is the fastest and the easily palatable, content for any of the user who is trying to learn the technology. And this is how integrated gamified security training is actually taking a very, good interaction in the market. If you're having this type of, gamified training and built within your product, it's a very easy thing even for, customer to learn about that technology, understand the nitty-gritties about how your features are designed. And this is what is the future of, the IAM, where we are looking through this particular features, and this is how it can actually make the life easier for any individual, not only from the implementation perspective but also from the customer perspective who is actually using it. Now let's talk about some other latest innovation areas where people are putting efforts and they are actually making a lot of strides in this particular area, and they are making lives of the customers as well easier as well. Some of the areas like integrated IAM for multi-cloud system. Now, it mostly it happens that people think that in clouds they are already integrated with identity and access management system. But when it happens that you are having an identity and access management system for your enterprise, and at the meantime you are trying to integrate the services, you want the enrollment to the services, the provisioning of that services, deprovisioning of the services to be entirely managed through your organization managed IAM. So the bigger gap that comes over here, that even though cloud vendors are having their integrated IAM, but it becomes very cumbersome for an enterprise application to tie up the process together. So there are many vendors who are taking actually the strides to create this type of an integrated IAM for multi-cloud ecosystems. And that is one of the area where a lot of innovations are happening. I was talking about multimodal authentication, right? Where you cannot just, sit along with, some static and defined modes of authentication. Rather, let the machine decide based on the context that which particular mode they want us to authenticate. And this is how we can maintain the dynamics and stay away from the algorithm of, the attackers, that they can feel that, okay, there are only two static ways. If I can hack that, user is mine. Even they can think of that they are having two. If you are having 10 parameters and that is getting asked dynamically, this is still a very, very big bet for an attacker to crack that mode. Quantum safe authentication, right? Everyone around the industry is talking about quantum, right? So quantum has become a hot cake right now. But the biggest, myth that people are thinking that once quantum computing is there in our ecosystem, the password will not work. That is a wrong myth. And definitely I'll ask each one of you to go back and read the, articles which is latest on the quantum. Like quantum is definitely going to speed up the computing, but still there are people who are holding like 20 character or 24 character complex password. The question, like whether quantum safe means quantum computing is going to break that 20 to 24 character password, which is very complex in nature. The answer is no. It will take still years for the quantum computing technology to break that password. So if you are hearing from someone that quantum, once there is a quantum technology that is in our day-to-day life, password will no longer valid. That's a myth. Password will be still valid if you are having a complex as well as longer password. Still quantum computing will take time to break it, because we do not have that much competent quantum computing machines yet which can break 18 to 20 or 24 characters password in a very simple manner if that is a complex password. Going to the ambient and invisible authentication. Now this is very interesting area. So people are talking about an ambient and invisible authentication, where they are saying, why we are asking for a person to just put your fingerprint? Why we are asking people to put just an OTP? These are a defined way of authentication. Let an individual register themselves the mode of authentication which is being provided by an application, and let the system itself ask for anyone out of them at the time. So this is how it makes an ambient and invisible authentication, because even an individual doesn't know that what particular factor is going to be popped up out of his registered or the enrolled modes. And this is how it is making one of the bigger fuss in the market, that whether ambient and invisible authentication is user friendly, whether it is going to give great result, whether people are going to adapt it. There are multiple questions, but this is also one of the innovative areas where the works are going on. Now, IAM for unstructured data. This is also a budding area. I'll not say that this is not the tapped area, but specifically in many geographical regions, this is one of the most untapped area, because most of the identity and access management implementation that you might have seen is revolving around the structured data sets. Very few solutions and products in the market are working around this unstructured data. And if you see the ratio between structured and unstructured is still at a very high rate. And if you'll just ask me the ratio between unstructured to the structured data, it's almost like 8:1. So whatever the creativity that you are doing within an organization, right? So you are writing either in a files, or you're recording in some meetings, or you're having in the form of some videos. But do you feel that that particular data is managed by IAM? In some organization, yes. In some organization, no. So wherever you are having these intellectual properties getting discussed, there is a very much need to have proper access control, a proper identity management on this particular artifacts. And this is how IAM for unstructured data is also a growing area, and one of the most sought out area for anyone who is trying to take a leap at it. Comprehensive IAM for non-human identities. We have been hearing a lot about non-human identities. Any identity which is not human is non-human identity. It is very simple, and if you can just think of anything apart from human, you can think of APIs, you can think of assets, you can think of the service accounts, you can think of any type of the magic links or the URLs that you are having as an asset for a particular application. So all management that is coming under this particular perspective is a non-human identity. Now, if you feel that do we have an end-to-end solution which is covering human and non-human identities, which is putting a converged layer altogether? Definitely not. There is nothing called a converged solution that we have yet. There are few solutions out in the market developed by certain vendors who are claiming that there is a comprehensive solution which is covering all type of NHIs, which is including PQCs as well as including all type of human features. Very less, but yeah, that is also one of the areas where it needs enhancements and advancements, and that is yet to a full matured solution is yet or baking in progress. That's what I would say. Similarly, CSM is solution design, that is cybersecurity mesh architecture, and pretty much again that is following the principles of zero trust framework. So the thought process is pretty simple. Like, if you are thinking identity management solution to work in silos, no, that is not the right way to do. You should be thinking of an identity fabric in your organization, where an identity fabric is touching each and every nooks and corners of your cybersecurity solution and framework. And this is what one of the innovative area where you should be thinking of. Any middleware, any type of systems, hardwares which is there in the organization needs to be directly or indirectly managed through an identity fabric. And this is the right way of solutioning, which can help you to protect your organization and systems on a longer run. Talking about quantum safe authentication and authorization, we actually talked about quantum safe authentication inside that. Smart and timely access certification reviews. So if you are thinking that going forward also scheduled reviews or certifications are going to help organization, it might help based on their domain or the nature of the business. But if you are a highly regulated organization, the time has come. With the advancement of AI, we should start thinking of the events based micro certification, where for each and every event that is getting triggered within an organization based on their risk nature, you should have an actionable control to tap it off. And this is how you can easily manage your timely access certification and reviews, and you can put a proper control rather than losing your control on top of this entire system. And finally, as I was talking about, though there are multiple vendors in the space talking about authentication is specific, authorization is specific, governance is specific, unstructured management is specific, analytics specific solutions, there is a need of a converged platform where we have everything in a single pan. And this is not only something which customers are looking through, but it's a need of an hour, because end of the day, if you're having all this solution baked in a single, or a single pane of glass, the retention is higher. The way you can think of a multi-business within a single organization, that is also possible. And this is how, these are one of the areas where you should think of, and this is the future of IAM. Going forward in next 4 or 5 years, you might see this in a practical use, and you must see, you will be able to visualize that these are taken into care, and this is ongoing. With this, I'll just take a pause. I'm also putting some of the, the reference materials, which could be your point of interest. Definitely, I'll be sharing this material to you for your consumption. Please go through this. These are one of the most sought journals, as well as the very famous articles around the globe, which is getting referred on a day-to-day basis. Also, I have just pointed the last two pieces as well for your consumption. So in case you are not an IAM enthusiast or want to get started in IAM, definitely have a look at this unified 180-day roadmap plan, where you can get yourself started right from scratch, and you can learn the advanced pieces of identity and access management. So with this, yes, I'm done and open for questions.
Thank you so much, Anand. Yeah, we'll try to take a couple of questions. We have one question says, how can IAM help stop insider threats and misuse?
Well, nice question. And this is why I said that when you are talking about in the future of IAM, you should have, the context-based authentication pieces in place. You should have, let me go back to the slide. And this is where we were talking about, right? UEBA-driven adaptive access and identity proofing and guided random passwordless authentications. Now, the point is very straight, insider threat, right? If your organization employee itself becomes rogue, how you can tap it off? Now, if you are having a comprehensive framework like CSMA, right, where your identities are mapped to each and every nooks and corners of your cybersecurity ecosystem, then if there is a rogue, event that is happening, the threat intel will be there. And if there is a threat intel, there should be a micro certification that should enable and get passed on to your immediate decision maker to take action, whether there is a right action that is happening or not. If you are envisioning that particular system, then definitely you can have a tap on the insider threat mechanism as well. Exterior threat is definitely an option, but yes, if you are having this type of model designed on identity and access management part, you can definitely take a control on insider threat as well.
My next question was about the outsider threat, like where it says, how can IAM help in securing third-party access?
All right. So external threat, it means there are two pieces. One, the person who are not belonging to an organization and trying to intrude in a system. And second, the supply chain, right? Like third-party vendors whom you are putting contracts for developing the softwares within your organization. How you can take a control? Definitely, you can have a proper vendor access management system. You should have a segregated and isolated way of authenticating that particular user, keeping a constant check on their access, whether they are intruding with any of the master privileged or elevated accesses within your organization. This is how you can take a control, or you can have a proper governance on those particular access to take a control on it.
We have another question which says, what's the role? I think you covered this. What's the role of the zero trust play, right, in
Yeah.
future?
Right. So it comes along with cybersecurity mesh architecture. Zero trust itself means never trust, always verify, right? And it is having 5 to 6 basic principles all around devices, user, infrastructure. Apart from that, you are having the principles and all together related to endpoints. So if you are fulfilling all that 7 principles of zero trust, definitely you can put access control, authentication, governance, analytics, micro certification, and visibility on each and every step, and you can control it.
We'll take one last question, Anand. Uh, what's the emerging trends in passwordless biometric verification?
Emerging trends in passwordless, but okay, so biometrics itself is a passwordless mechanism. So emerging trends, as I said, multimodal authentications are emerging, invisible and amicable authentications are emerging. So if you go through a couple of IEEE papers that is already out there, So people are have started looking through, the authentication through heartbeat, through blood samples. Though this is not very much ethical, I would say, because there is something called a privacy that is there in the market. And if you are having that type of factors to be stored for an authentication perspective, I don't see that it is going to be user friendly, because someone asking for a blood sample and taking for an authentication doesn't make sense, right? So though there are emerging areas where the research are already going on, because in research it doesn't make sense, whether you are having a practical implementation of it or not, but there are a lot of researches that is going on the unique human element which can be a part of authentication. However, in the digital world, multimodal authentication is one of the most emerging area, and one of the passwordless mode of authentication which is currently in much demand. And apart from having a fixed way, like currently you might have been seeing that in passwordless also you are asking to open up something like an authenticator app like a Google Authenticator, or multiple authenticator apps are there in the market, and just put some the letters or words inside it, some numbers, and you're getting authenticated. But again, that is a static way of doing things. Multimodal means you are having multiple factors for your to define your uniqueness, and a system might ask you randomly any of that particular parameter to use and authenticate. Now that is currently in research, as well as also in some of the practical testings are going on. Not sure from a user convenience perspective how people are going to adapt it, but yeah, that is one of the passwordless area. Apart from biometrics, this multimodal thing is very much promising, that is getting tested.
Hey, thank you so much, Anand. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you taking time out on your weekend to give us this brilliant presentation. Okay,
Thank
and
you.
really appreciate it. And to all our audience, thank you all for joining. And please visit our website at iifis.org to find out more about becoming an ATP for IIFIS certified courses. And we'll keep you all posted for our upcoming events by email and our social media channels. And we're looking forward to connecting with you all soon. And thank you again for attending today's session. And have a nice day, everybody. Have a nice day, Anand.